the problem at the bird? Remember what I said earlier? I said 133, 134, and 135 are going to deal with what? Worship. Going to deal with worship. When we come together to worship, and you doing your thing, you doing your thing, you doing your thing, you doing your thing, and you doing your thing, and I'm doing my thing, are we dwelling pleasantly in unity?
Yes. Yes.
We all have a.
Shut your mouth.
And you said we're doing our own.
Yeah, you're doing your own thing. And that's what you just said. You said you mess with me.
Yeah.
Ain't that what you said?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. You know the whole thing?
We're doing our own thing,
Yeah.
but we're all alike, so we're doing what?
We're not supposed to be doing our own thing.
That's not the question, though. I agree with you. That's not the question.
I know.
The question is, if we're sitting in there doing our own thing, Adrian's in there writing checks, James is in there talking to somebody on the dumb telephone or texting like he even got good sense, you dealing with the baby,
No.
are we coming together
Yes, we are.
in unity?
Yes, we are.
No.
No.
You're not.
Oh.
Because I'm using y'all's definition. Because you said what? Unity is what? Being what? What'd you say unity was? You said unity was what? You said union, somebody said united, what else was thrown on the floor?
One man. One act.
Should be. Should be. But the point I'm trying to drive home is where he says, behold how good and pleasant it is. When we do what? Come together how? In unity. So if we're not coming together in oneness, with the same mind, Adrian, with the same judgment, then we can't claim before the throne of God, guess what? The pleasantry of unity. When we come together to worship, somebody said we're supposed to. You're absolutely right. Yes, I'm not trying to pick on nobody, but yes, there's a good example. Yes, there's a good example. Why are we struggling to sing? You know why we're struggling to sing? Because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word made everything that was made. And came from flesh. You know what the real problem is? We don't know God. And we don't respect Him enough to guess what? What's worship?
God, no.
God? Okay, man. But the reason the psalmist does that is right in John 1. What do you find in John 1? If you can see. You find the thing in the Godhead that God is using to define, guess what? Unity. What did he use? The Word. The Word. The Father. The Son. That's why James says there's three that bear record in heaven. The Father, the Word, and the Word. See, until yesterday, you would not have called Jesus the Word. Not the way James did. Because what is James recognizing? The unity, yes, sir. So when I come to present myself before God to get this idea of being good and pleasant, what must I do? What must I do? And a lot of gas in that. What must I do? Submit myself. He says, submit myself.
Bow down before the Lord.
He says, bow down before the Lord.
Take your shoes off. Cleanse yourself.
Take your shoes off and cleanse yourself. You know, all those answers would be right if you excluded guess who? Yourself. You can't do it. You can't do it. So your brother came in here, and I'm glad he's back, even if it's only for a temporary stay. Yeah, I told him he sat right by the one he said picked on me yesterday. I told him he sat in the right place. You have your thrill with it. But I told him today. When I said yesterday that Jesus was the radiance of the Father. The exact representation of God's character. James said that he is logos. What James actually said, you can worship against him. Now, how many of us worship us? And we'll see this later on. So the question in my mind is, when we come together to worship, we're supposed to come to the what?
Oh, lift each other up and,
No, not let me go back, my bad. And it was wrong, that was
Break
wrong.
on your moment. And then what? Why? Why? What's the aim of me stimulating you to love and goodness?
To glorify him.
That's easy to say, but that's not what the text says.
Praise God.
What does the text say? See, if you stick to the text, you always get the answer. He says how good it is to do what? And how pleasant it is to do what? Come together how? In a unified way. Why do I have to beg Van to come in and open up the building on Sunday morning? John 6 is going to, John 3 is going to kill y'all, 4 is going to kill y'all. Because Jesus meets this woman at the well. Don't do it. She on her way. He meets this woman at the well, and you know what the woman at the well does with him? What y'all been doing? Gave him everything he didn't ask for. And he said, okay, the time has come and now is when the what? True worship shall be what? Worship the Father out. Why does he use worshipers? And by the way, in the Greek construct of that text, that is not a plural word. So don't let it fool you.
Maybe it's one. Unified.
He's using worship as a all-inclusive single term, which means you're binary. Are you on that one?
No.
I just know you. All of us in this room, when we come together, the only way that we can be good and pleasant in the sight of God, guess what? That's Corinthians chapter 1, you said it.
You worship it
That's not what you said. We have to be of the same mind and of the same judgment. So when Mike is struggling to sing and to get us to sing, who was trying to, what's that word? Stimulate him at the time he was trying to be the struggle. Where you hope so? I hope. Hoping is good, but that ain't the question. The question is, how many of us? And if all of us were not, guess what? Did he finally show up? He finally showed up. If all of us were not doing it, guess what yesterday? It's a click beetle. You finally, I call myself putting my foot in them over there. I guess I lost 30 pounds and they hit it. No. Pay attention. He said, how good it is. And then he goes in before and he said, bless the Lord, all servants of the Lord who serve by night in the where? In the house. He says, lift up what? Lift up your hands in the sanctuary and do what? All of that is running concurrent. If you set them all together, you'll see this. You'll see this. In order to worship the Father in the Spirit and by the truth, it takes more than the logos. Y'all know why it takes more than the logos? Because Jesus attaches, guess what to it? The Spirit. So then worship is not just an intellectual, but it's also an emotional, spiritual, emotional, it's fine. But what emotion is it that God has got? That's good and pleasant. Hmm? You don't need your love. You got that. Enjoy it. That's for you. That's the question. What does God require for it to be good and pleasant? Better? No, don't go too far. You're in the right neighborhood. Latrell, proskuneo, these words are words that they worship. What God wants, first of all, He does it all. Maybe He doesn't. The first thing He requires is thanksgiving. Because what does thanksgiving do? It produces what? Emotion. Some sort of spiritual thing that's not attached to anything tangible. So when I'm thankful to God, what do? That's good. She said it too. But what does the text say? And y'all scared to do this, by the way. It ain't. So why is it so hard when we're at worship? Not that you have to do this, I mean, use it. To lift up your hands in the sanctuary, because lift up your hands in the sanctuary becomes an uproar for something else. What it's saying is, I have an emotion that's driving me to worship the one that I'm thankful. Well, let me ask. Maybe I'm going at it. Are we like the woman from Samaria, which was a Gentile, by the way? She was in the Gentile world. Are we like the woman from Samaria? And we're just programmed to come together, be together, and not please God. I'm asking us about our program. How many of us have adopted the art of the Pharisee? You worship God because that's how your mom and your daddy told you how to do it. See, when I asked the dumb question, that's always what you about it. When I asked the dumb question about the million, it was lovely for a reason. Everybody was on it. Everybody was in there. And guess what everybody should be in? In worship. Everybody should be in worship. Because when we come together to do one thing and one thing only. We do it by through stimulation. One thing. Guess what that is? To make peace with Him. And then I would do the fact that 8% of the people in the room don't come to worship. We come out of guess what? Vision. Out of fellowship. We like each other. We're supposed to be here. And what good is that? If at the end of time, God looks at us and He says, "Your Father, I have it." What good? He says it's good with brothers to dwell in unity. It's like precious oil from the head coming down from the beard. Think. And come out to all your drink now. And come out to all your drink. But think about what he is saying. What does that do? Oil. If poured on somebody, right? What does it? You and you and you possibly should change. But what should be going through your mind right now is the Old Testament sacrifices under the Levitical priesthood, because that's where you learn how to worship Him. And when that carcass is burned, that aroma goes up to His God. And the Bible describes it as a what? A sweet savor or sweet aroma in the nostrils of God. What does that look like? I can tell you, our singing didn't look like this. That certainly would. If you were God, would you say that came from a place of thanksgiving? I found it. When God woke us up yesterday, He gave us all hand to breathe together. You really think that when we did what we did, that God said to Himself? Just ask me a tough question. Because I told you when we started out, if you ever want to learn how to worship God in spirit, you need the song. You probably see me more often than anybody, because you pay attention. But what were the expressions that you find on my face? You see, you ain't seen me, mate. Let's not push it. Let's say disappointed. You don't not want to see me, mate. I'm not that what I meant. And those are emotions. Those are emotions. What am I frustrated about? Is it the singing that I'm frustrated about? Or is it the unity that I'm frustrated about? I'm not concerned about the singing. I'm really not. It is, because what everybody in this room does, guess what it affects? It affects how I present myself to God. Whether we understand this like this or not, I'm not sure, but it does. That's why He says it's a good and pleasant thing when we come together how? As one unified group. But y'all are negatively affecting my worship, and y'all don't think I should have an expression on my face about that? And if I'm negative expression, it's doing yours. Y'all don't think y'all should have a negative emotion about that? Turn to Genesis chapter 6. Y'all looking like y'all the only one got some sense right here. Yeah, see, James came in with this nonsense today about being created in the image and the likeness of God, and I agree with it. But he just didn't know what he was saying. Look, Bible says in verse number 5 that the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was emotional. He was sorry. Y'all know what sorry means? He was disappointed. That he did what? So when we come together, don't you think there is a chance that some of us can be disappointed by our being together? It is a natural response to this idea of guess what? If you want to worship God in spirit and truth. Now, you just want to come together and do like Angela suggested to never go and just take the money and give it back. Oh, well. I loaded the barrel just to get a discussion. And you just on top. But This is why y'all can't understand. That's why I said it 7 times yesterday. The Christ you worship, the Christ you say you love, the Christ you say love you back. You ever hear me say that? When you see angels, we come together and worship. You know what you see? No, we're standing beside you. Thank you. We're one and the same now. Why? We came together how? And that pleases God. It doesn't please God when we come together and do evil. Evil doesn't mean necessarily you doing anything that's bad. He qualifies it. The intents of your what? No. Your heart. What did you come to worship for? What did you come for? To evaluate man and his teaching? Yeah, you disappointed him. If that's what you came for. That's what you came for. You came because you're trying to make peace with guess who, sinners? You're trying to make peace with them. All have sinned and fallen short, guess what? Of his glory. What are we trying to do? By being in Christ. Get that back. That's why it's important for you to understand what I tried to say yesterday, which we're going to capitalize on even some more. If you do not understand the Christ that you serve, you will never be the kind of worshiper, guess what? That please God.
I mean, this also is it wrong to come to learn as well?
There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not how we worship. Discipleship is important. As a matter of fact, it's way up here. Because and you can't disconnect this thought. Because what did God say that he's going to do? He did, didn't he? Where's he going to do with that?
In your heart, in your mind.
Where is he going to do with that? Where is he going to do with that? I get that. I ain't talking about that, but where is he going to do with that? When we come together, 2 or 3 of us, in his name, he's in the midst. What is he doing in the midst? Teaching. Speaking to yourself in songs and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and doing what? Admonishing one another. Singing is not just, it's a form of guess what? Teaching. That's why women can't be singing. Form of teaching. What am I teaching you when I don't stimulate my change of man? What am I teaching? How ungrateful I am. How ungrateful I am that God has done what he's done. Why we come here to church? What makes us a church? It's the grace of God. When the grace of God came where? Into the world, what did he do? See, that's why. Y'all ain't gonna make it. Because we spent a whole year on that. When he came here, he came to do what? Teach us what? How to live how? How else?
Right.
How else? Where?
In his presence.
When we come together as a church, we don't have an excuse to worship God how? In vain. How else? False. We don't have the right to do that because guess what? I have been crucified with 18. Nevertheless, I live. But it's not me that's living any longer. It's Adrian that's living in me. And the life that I'm living by what? By faith in Adrian. Who what? Don't hate me. Don't hate. She loves me. She loves me, and she's willing to lay herself down for me. In other words, when Mike is up there singing and y'all ain't helping out, you know what you don't, you know what you are really teaching? That's what you're teaching. That you don't know. Because you're not willing to, guess what? To give up your precious moment so that you could do what? Make peace with God. And God loved the world, what did he do? He did, didn't he? He moved himself out the way, didn't he? We're gonna do better Sunday. I'm just saying, when you really sit down and you think about worship, all that nonsense that you see on TV and all that other garbage that you've been associated with, I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about this.
Do you know that, when you know that you're worshiping and singing is a part of worship, and if you miss that part of worship, you may do your communion, do all that, and you have not done those 5 hours of worship, then you're not worshiping, true worship. But I sing, I be out of tune, but I sing now. Can nobody say I don't sing?
Now don't get me wrong, and in the technical sense, you're right. But here's what I would say. We have become so mechanical in worship. That's why we call it the 5 items. Because for some strange reason, we believe that if I don't give, and if I don't sing, and if I don't commune, and if I don't listen or learn, if I don't pray, I haven't worshiped. Let me suggest it. You can do all that, still not worship. You can do it all. Because the thing you're not doing is, guess what? Making peace with God. That's what we come here for. Now, let me show you how this works. Because when Jesus finishes with the lady in Samaria, the first thing she does when he finishes with her is identify him as, guess who? It's God. It's difficult for y'all to call Jesus God. It's tough. Because in your mind, that's what you've done. You've tossed it up. And you've got this Trinitarian idea in your head that's really not true. And that's why John has to do this defense. It says, in the where? In the beginning of time. In the beginning of time. Was what? But because he says the word, you don't call him Jesus. You don't call him that. You call him what? The word. But you learned yesterday that Logos is what? Essence. As a human being, he was still the word. Essence of the word. And he was with God, and he. So why is it so hard to call him God? Why you got to call him Christ? I'm just asking. See, that's what our Jehovah's Witness brothers do. They relegate Jesus to just some cosmic idiot that has no purpose, and that's why they single out Jehovah, because they don't understand how the Godhead actually is unified, even though James says it is, even though Jesus says, I and the Father are one, they don't accept that. And I think sometimes in the church, guess what? We don't even. But what's wrong with calling yourself Christ or Jesus? What's wrong with that? You see yourself as Jesus? He tried that earlier. That's so bad. Not the way he was saying it.
That way I said it.
How many of us see ourselves as Jesus? It's tough to do that, isn't it?
I was fighting going on.
And the reason it's hard is because you don't understand your own trichotomy. Even though you hear it all the time. How often do you look in the mirror and see that? Because you're not looking for him. But he's there. Because guess what? When he left his mother and father and he prayed to you, y'all became his. You see. But because you have decided in your mind you want to see Adrian, guess what you can't see? Because you decided in your mind you want to see Adrian, or Adriel, not Adrian, please, not Adrian. You can't see Angela. I can't see Jackie. It's not that it don't exist. Mind is a terrible thing. It's just that we're not focused, and in worship, guess we're not focused. We're not focused. Because I can tell you, when this lady was focused on Jesus, the first thing she did was this. Proselytization. She went to the men of Samaria. Guess what they did? They went to the politicians in Samaria. Guess what they did? We come together. We can't even take off our shoes, can we? Because it's not about guess who. It's not about God. Our worship is not about God. It's about something else. Y'all ain't buying this, are you? It's okay, because see, I told this to Gail today. I'm not concerned about going to heaven. I'm really not. I'm concerned about going to heaven. Yeah. Listen. Back in 32, actually, you saw this. The main idea in 32 was God blessing us in his dwelling place. Then when we get to 32, we started looking at brotherly unity and what that means as it relates to how we come before God. So, Paul tells Timothy, he says, I want you and a fellow by the name of Titus, I want you to go to Ephesus. I want you to go. And I want you all to make elders in every city. Why does he always use the plural in singular events? Why does he do it? Because each part of elder has a manifestation. His is what? Oh, I can't remember. Which one is it? No, empty. Or else manifestation is. But guess who is responsible for that? Guess who's responsible for each one of those parts? Well, manifestation is different. But we're still the who? The elders. And the same way with God. He manifested himself 3 different ways. But guess what? Same God. You don't worship Jehovah and not Jesus. Or Jesus and not the Spirit. If you do, something is earth-scorchingly wrong.
Let's see. Good. God, we blood, and us is worshiping.
No. The Spirit of God is not dwelling in you if you're worshiping in vain. The Christ God, you cannot change. The Father, you cannot change. You don't have nothing to do with it. Did I just confuse you? No. Once you have been justified, yes. There's only one way to change that. Once you've been born into Christ, there's only one way to change it. I ask you this. You either apostate or you die. Either one ain't good. You either turn your back or you die. Now, therefore, there is no what? To who? Those that are here. And what he did in Romans chapter 8 is he just left chapter 7 talking about justification. Because we're not justified based on who? Self. We're justified based on the finished work of Christ. So you can't change it. All you can do is get judged. So, but when you worship in vain, you have a part with this. Jesus said in what? They do worship me doing what? Teaching as what? Doctrine the what? Commands of men. Now, that's a different animal. Who commanded you to come and worship on the first day of the week? Who commanded you to come and worship every other Sunday? You're gonna in Proverbs, Solomon is going to do the best job I know on language. You're gonna see. Now, anything we do, by the way, that is not God breathed is vain. Y'all get it? Now, Helen getting mad because 19 got 3 song leaders up at one time, that's vain. Because it's not, guess what? Okay, what's the tradition called for? I didn't say it was in order. I said it was vain. It may not be in order. But vain worship comes, it comes directly from, guess what? False teaching. What is false teaching?
Teaching what, here's what God,
Give me another word for it. Give me another word for it. It's the unforgivable. That's what you do. Speaking against, guess what?
God.
Spirit of God. Now, why is that important? What does the Spirit do for us? What does the Spirit do for us? That you reject. Now, just use you because you asked the question. What did the Spirit do for us that she rejected? I'm justified by who? Christ. That manifestation, yes, God, but the manifestation of Christ. I'm justified by that. So now what did the Spirit do?
It shows something.
Y'all gonna get this again second. Right? What did the Spirit do? He does the same thing in creation, he does in redemption, and every day we live. Better. He seals us. How? Our justification. He seals it until the day of redemption. So the Spirit gives me a guarantee that when I walk up out of here, guess where I'm going? What you did was said, I don't want that. That's why I was just saying you asked the question. That's why I said you. You said in vain. What you did was you said to God, I don't want that.